Judge Judy looked down at the case file before turning toward the plaintiff. Miss Thomas, according to your complaint, you and the defendant lived together as a couple for 7 years. Is that correct? Yes, Mom. The judge nodded slowly. And the apartment you lived in, was it jointly owned? No. Mom. The apartment was only in my name. Judge Judy continued carefully building the timeline. Did you move into the apartment together? No. How long had you already lived there before he moved in? About 15 years total. We lived together there for 7 years. The courtroom stayed quiet while Judge Judy focused on finances. During those 7 years together, Miss Thomas worked for Crowley Independent School District. The defendant, Orrin Davis, claimed he worked multiple jobs during the relationship, including Trinity Towers and Ford Machine. Judge Judy immediately moved toward the issue. Couples fight about most. Money. How did you divide the bills? Did you have a joint bank account? No. Mom, the plaintiff explained, she had her own bank account. The defendant did not. Judge Judy looked directly at him. So how did the finances work? According to Miss Thomas, she handled most of the bills herself, while the defendant occasionally gave her money toward expenses, but, before she could continue, Defendant interrupted. Not true. Judge Judy immediately stepped in. No, I don't believe that's true. The courtroom became tense instantly, because according to Judge Judy, if 2 adults lived together for 7 years, while both worked jobs, it made no sense that one person contributed almost nothing financially the entire time. Still, Miss Thomas insisted money had always been a constant source of arguments between them. We fought all the time because he didn't regularly help with bills. Judge Judy nodded knowingly. Well, that's what married couples and unmarried couples usually fight about. The courtroom laughed softly, but Judge Judy quickly brought the case back under control. You stayed together for 7 years, she reminded both of them. And now you expect me to figure out who owns what property after 7 years together. The judge shook her head immediately. That's not going to happen. That statement instantly changed the direction of the case. Because, according to Judge Judy, once couples live together for many years, property ownership becomes extremely difficult, separating item by item. Still, there were a few specific issues she agreed reviewing. According to the plaintiff, when she finally became tired of the relationship and told the defendant to leave, he took several things that she claimed belonged to her, including 2 television sets. The defendant immediately disagreed. According to him, he only took items that belonged to him personally. Judge Judy leaned forward. Did you take any other furniture besides the televisions? No, Your Honor. Then the judge started asking about the apartment itself. How big was the apartment? 2 bedrooms. Both bedrooms had beds? Yes. Living room couch? Yes. Table and chairs? Yes. Judge Judy nodded again. And you left all those things behind? Yes. The defendant also mentioned leaving behind computers and other property. But Judge Judy immediately cut him off. I'm not dealing with all that stuff. The judge made herself crystal clear. She refused spending hours untangling 7 years of shared living arrangements and upgraded household items. According to the testimony, some televisions had been replaced over time during the relationship as a couple. We upgraded together, the plaintiff explained. Judge Judy agreed. That's correct, but then Miss Thomas revealed another problem. One of those televisions still has payments owed on it. The courtroom became quiet again. He has the television, but I'm still paying for it. Judge Judy paused briefly, but even then, she refused getting dragged into arguments about shared household upgrades after a 7-year relationship. Instead, Judge turned toward the issue she actually intended deciding: the bail bond. Let's get to the bond, Judge Judy said firmly. According to the file, the defendant had been arrested years earlier on an assault charge. Judge Judy looked directly at him. I assume Miss Thomas was the complainant in that case? Yes. And her daughter, too. The courtroom atmosphere immediately became more serious. Judge Judy looked back down at the paperwork before continuing with the bail bond issue. And what year was this arrest? 2011. The judge nodded carefully. And after this assault situation involving Miss Thomas and her daughter, you still continued living together? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Judy raised her eyebrows slightly. So, after all of that, she allowed you to come back and continue the relationship? Yes. Then the defendant added something important. She actually bailed me out. Judge Judy immediately pointed toward the plaintiff. That's what this case is about. But Miss Thomas quickly interrupted. He paid for the bond himself. I only signed for it. The courtroom became quiet while she explained the situation in more detail. According to her, the defendant already had the money for the bond, but because he was incarcerated at the time, she had to physically go to the bail bondsman and handle the paperwork herself. It was his money, she explained. I just took it there because I was the one outside. Judge Judy paused. If it was his money, then why are you suing him? The defendant reacted instantly. Yeah. Judge Judy immediately silenced him. Quiet. Then the plaintiff explained the real problem, because even though the defendant provided money toward the bond agreement, had been placed entirely in her name. And more importantly, her truck had been used as collateral. The courtroom atmosphere shifted immediately. Judge Judy leaned forward carefully. So what you're telling me is, his money may have paid the bond, but you had to provide collateral? Yes, that distinction suddenly became very important. Because according to Miss Thomas, if the defendant failed appearing in court afterward, she personally risked losing her vehicle. Judge Judy immediately understood why the issue still mattered. Years later, the plaintiff explained she spoke directly with the bail bond company herself and handled the agreement under pressure while the defendant sat in jail. According to her testimony, she trusted him enough at the time to put her own property at risk for his release. The judge looked directly toward the defendant again. And after she signed for you, you both stayed together another 4 years? Yes, Your Honor. That answer clearly surprised Judge Judy, because according to the timeline, despite assault accusations, legal problems, money arguments, and constant fighting, relationship still continued until April of 2015. Judge Judy shook her head slightly. The case was no longer just about televisions or unpaid money. It had become another example of a long relationship filled with shared finances, emotional decisions, and blurred responsibilities. Then the judge returned briefly to the television dispute. According to the plaintiff, one television still had payments owed even after the defendant took it from the apartment. But Judge Judy once again refused getting pulled into arguments over household property accumulated accumulated during 7 years together. You upgraded things together as a couple, she repeated firmly. And I'm not sorting through every television, couch, and appliance after 7 years. The courtroom remained silent. Because both parties clearly understood, Judge Judy had no interest in dividing household property, like a divorce court. Instead, her focus stayed entirely on legal responsibility. Who signed what? Who owed what? And whose name remained attached to financial risk afterward. Then Judge Judy looked back toward Miss Thomas one more time. You put your truck up as collateral for him. Yes. And you trusted him. Yes. At that moment, emotional center of the case became obvious. The lawsuit wasn't really about televisions anymore. It was about trust after 7 years together, and what happens when relationships fall apart while financial obligations remain behind.